It's frustrating reading this sometimes because I get this a lot at the cash register. I was explaining it to Sean was coming up with the word for me. A two-faced compliment or something, backhanded compliment. That's what it was, because they give you a compliment and then they backhand you as they're walking out the door. Then, like, this place is nice, but you're a loser. Goodbye. That's what you get working at our store. Anyway, this is frustrating reading this because most of the things he say are either not necessarily or in a comic book world where Tony Stark or Wolverine or Cyclops or the Blob or something, or Colossus, one of these heroes, Superman would be the best example of, in a perfect world, this would happen. Or you watch one of those old shows of Superman, it's like, Superman, Lex Luthor just robbed the bank, what do we do? He's got kryptonite blasters. Let's go stop him. And it's just, and it is in black and white, so Superman must save the day. And there's no, moral gray area, like, Superman, in order to save him, you have to... I don't know an example right now. I can't think of anything. But actually, the TV show Smallville was all about that. The black and white, and then the gray character. And the moral ambiguity. What does that have to do with what we're talking about? In real life, does Satan manipulate from every angle? I think he does. Does that make things so simple that you can deal with them perfectly? Sometimes. In a perfect world where Jesus Christ was ruling, everything he's saying would be true, but in a satanic world where Satan not only caused Job's problems here, but Satan continues to be the enemy, the adversary, the prosecution, the accuser before God about you, Alex did this. Alex had that filthy thought. He did this thing. Clearly he's not saved. He's not born again. Those kinds of thoughts run through your brain as you're trying to get the energy to get in front of the camera, He's not worthy to say anything. I mean, he's right that I'm not worthy and I'm filthy. But I'm also God's, and I've begged for his mercy and forgiveness. And we're going to move forward. And grace is infinite. And forgiveness, thank God, and his mercy. And Satan wants you to walk around feeling miserable all day about your mistakes in life and your regrets or your wrong choices. But God wants you to succeed and thrive, and God wants to enjoy this life with you, and he wants to be there for you and with you. You got to communicate with him and talk to him about your problems and your situations. Satan wants you in a prison cell rotting to death until you commit suicide or something like that, So anyway, these people, as the conclusion of Job shows at the very end, when God's talking about these guys, Eliphaz and whatever their names are, Bildad and Eliphaz, Bildad, and Garbage Face. I can't think of the third guy's name. But anyway, these guys make a lot of assumptions about God, and you have to be careful in a lot of the things they're saying. For wrath killeth the foolish man, and envy slayeth the silly one. Doesn't seem like it. I grew up with a lot of silly people, and they seem to thrive. My peers in grade school, so many of them are like doctors and engineers and advanced people and stuff, but they're dumb. To be a doctor and to be so dumb, just amazing. Or a teacher, how can you be a teacher of Greek and Latin and be so dumb? How could you possibly be a liberal? How could you be that dumb? Never mind. But anyway, even though those people, in my opinion, now I admit they are geniuses. I know a lot of very smart people. They're geniuses. They're brilliant, but they're also stupid, To side with liberalism, communism, and Satanism and against God is dumb. So, his statement, for wrath killeth the foolish man, and envy slayeth the silly one, does that? Well, in the end, yes, right? When Jesus Christ comes, he's going to be like Judge Dredd type, Code 519. Rejecting God. How do you plead? Not guilty. I knew you'd say that. Court is adjourned. And then it's not going to be good, These people are in a lot of trouble. And you say that to them every day. And the writing is on the wall everywhere, It's just it's so obvious. But they look at me like I'm the problem, He's so hateful and bigoted and racist. He's the one preventing love from our world. And they're allowing invaders into our country, willingly. So anyway, in the end, yes, the foolish person will be taken care of, but right now, they seem to be thriving. So, that's how you look at it. I have seen the foolish taking root, but suddenly I cursed his habitation. So all you got to do is curse their habitation, and then you win. And then there's no more commies? Really? I don't think so. That doesn't really happen. It seems like the commies and the Satanists just seem to keep growing in our culture, and they seem to be taking over everything because they're cheating, but oh well. So, does that work? No, it doesn't seem to work. Whose harvest the hungry eateth up, and taketh it even out of the thorns, and the robber swalloweth up their substance. So a robber comes out and takes care of these bad people, huh? They end up killing each other. Now that's kind of true. I could see that. But a robber is indiscriminate. He could rob a good conservative guy, or he could rob a liberal rich idiot, It doesn't really matter to the robber. Do they end up swalloweth up their substance? I mean, that's possible. Although affliction cometh not forth of the dust, neither doth trouble spring out of the ground. Are you sure? God works in ways that you can't even imagine, you know? God will use a worm with Elijah. He'll use something very small. He could use something large. He could use something that, like an ancient thing that you never even realized, and then like a branch or something that just falls out of nowhere and bonks you in the head and you're dead, you know? And you had no idea that 10 years ago there was a beehive up there that grew in there, and then you get bonked in the head and you get eaten by bees or something, you know, because it was all planned out 10 years ago when you cheated on your wife or something. I don't know. God will use a lot of different things. Springs out of the dust, comes out of nowhere. Is that what he's saying? Comes out of nowhere. No. I mean, yes and no. Trouble, sometimes you can say, I deserve this, you know? I feel like when you get into that tough spot, you can realize that, like, I deserve this. Or, does it come out of nowhere? Or could it be long planned in advance? Could be both. We'll get to the notes in the next one. Sorry.